everybody remembers the very first game that they ever played. And for me, it was Mario RPG. I love Mario. I've always wanted to try my hand at modeling him, so he seemed like a fitting choice for a time-lapse tutorial series. And after making Mario, I'm really excited about this one. I'm just going to run through some of my thoughts on the process. I chose to make the Mario Odyssey model. Mario is one of those characters that is pretty set in stone. He's been featured in so many games that finding really good reference of him is incredibly easy. I've got like 16 folders of all sides of Mario, which was totally pointless because I only needed to use the actual Mario Odyssey model as reference, which you can get at Models Resource, link in the description. Initially, my goal was to replicate the model exactly, and although I got pretty close, I definitely didn't manage to get it exact, but I'm super happy with how he turned out. I expected his face to be the most difficult part, but it ended up being fairly straightforward, and came together rather quickly with the help of a subdivision modifier. I practiced making Mario about 4 times before recording him. Some parts more than that, and the final modeling footage is about 8 hours. 8-ish, around there. Then a few more hours of texturing and rigging, which will be another video. It's been an interesting challenge to record my modeling process in a way that's conducive to time-lapsing. I ended up using a separate Blender window off screen that I used to see all the other angles of my model, so I'm not provoking any epileptic seizures in our audience. Occasionally, however, I get really into modeling and totally forget that I'm recording myself. While working on the nose, I wanted to keep it separate just so that it was easier to see what I was working on. However, the nose opening on the face had something like 19 vertices, I can't remember exactly, which made it interesting to connect to a nose shape. But I just made a little shape guide and retopoed it to work. Side note, untextured Mario has a striking resemblance to a clown, which is kind of creepy. Somehow, Mario is an actual clown? Adorable, but untextured normal Mario? Creepy clown. When you're retopoing, it can help to go into the Object Properties tab and enable In Front in the viewport display. I didn't do this while I was retopoing the nose, and that led to me making a couple weird faces, but it was easy to fix. I used curves to shape the eyebrows, which worked really well. Maybe overcomplicated, but handy for getting the right shape. I really like using curves. It does sometimes feel overcomplicated, but I feel like it's been worth it every time I go through the effort. Also, it's just good fun to make a shape and see it deform to your curve. Love making curves. Spent days just putting shapes on curves. Love it. His hair was quite interesting to make. A lot of different little shapes happening in there. I essentially just made a guide for the main shapes, then retopoed it. I thought I was being really clever using a lighted render as my reference, so that the curvature of the model was easier to work out, but I didn't light it very well. So it was sometimes hard to make out where the edges of some of the objects were, which made some of his facial features, particularly his mustache, harder to position. I think I'd probably do the mustache more similar to how I did the hair if I were to do it again. The purely box modeling method worked, but it was hard to reshape the lower spherical shapes into something that looked good. Real-time video game character topology is very different from other forms of professional modeling. I'm not a professional, but I've looked at a lot of different character models from games, and it seems like it's the Wild West in terms of what is acceptable for a real-time video game character. Seemingly, as long as the character looks good and deforms well enough, it's good. When I first started making his body, I wasn't really sure how I was going to pull off his suspenders, since it's actually quite a complicated area that curves back around in on itself. There were a ton of ways of achieving this, but I'm lazy and went for the easiest way I could think of and just used a solidify modifier. Throughout the video, you'll see blue lines on my model. These are edges that I've marked as sharp and use an edge split modifier to create sharp edges in my mesh. This way, I can have a bunch of smooth shaded faces touching, but also have some visual separation. Using a modifier to do this allows my mesh to remain easily editable. This might come as a surprise, but Mario has a neck. You can't really see his neck object unless you look really hard from the backside, but it's in there, it's just hiding. The Mario Odyssey character model was one of the first times I've encountered a character with so much overlapping geometry, with his shoes, hair, and particularly in his hands. His fingers are massive and clip into each other, which I've never seen before or even considered a possibility. Besides making it more difficult to work with, it doesn't seem to negatively impact the final model, so it opens a lot of avenues. Originally, I wasn't sure if I was going to model his hands this way, or do something I was more comfortable with / do my weird fix to. I ended up just keeping it true to the model, and I'm super happy with how they turned out, even though it was a little bit more difficult to replicate. I almost forgot the bumps on his gloves, since I didn't have them on my reference model for some reason, but I last minute stress sweated them into existence. I used a different reference for his cap, since my reference was for hair. The actual Mario has 2 hair objects, one for under the hat, which is all scrunched up, and one for without his hat. Also, what type of hat is Mario supposed to be wearing? I always thought it was just a smushed baseball cap. But apparently, there are other types of hats that aren't baseball caps, so I'm way out of my area expertise when it comes to that. The official Mario Odyssey model also has eyelids, which I didn't do, but that's because I'm a rebel. And stagnant models don't blink. It's gonna be Mario's 35th birthday next year, so I'm pretty excited for the litany of games that will most likely accompany that. Also, there's apparently a Mario movie coming in 2022, written by Miyamoto himself, which no doubt will be good. Overall, Mario was an interesting and challenging character to model. Trying to decide how to model all the individual shapes using different methods was definitely a fun undertaking. I'd like to see how the designers at Nintendo actually made him. I highly recommend to anyone out there who wants to learn to 3D model to model everything. Model every piece of furniture you own, every character you can think of. Look up different YouTube tutorials and model them all. Model everything. Even if you don't know how to make the exact thing you're trying to model, you're going to learn something in the process. I definitely did while making Mario. I taught myself how to 3D model by doing exactly this, just looking at game models and trying to recreate them. I think more than anything, experience and practice seems to make all the difference when you're trying to build up your modeling skills. I've really only been modeling for like 3 years, but I occasionally take naps and eat. So if I can do this, you can. And if you've never 3D modeled anything, now is as good a time as any to start. If you're interested in modeling at all, you 100% for sure can do this. Blender is free and open source. Go to blender.org, download it. It's quite possibly the best thing that has ever existed. No, it is the best thing that has ever existed. My method of modeling, or box modeling, only requires a keyboard and mouse. I don't even have a screen or a computer, just the keyboard and mouse. I find it an awesome creative outlet, and I love making stuff with it, and I think a lot of you would too. On that note, we've been discussing for a while, and have decided that we're going to do a set of introduction to Blender tutorials. A surprisingly large amount of people who are new to 3D modeling or have never modeled before are finding our channel. So, if you're new to Blender, or have no idea where to start, or think you might like 3D modeling but have never tried it, we're thinking to roll out a few beginner tutorials to get you caught up and ready to blend along with some of our character modeling videos. Also, there's a bunch of high quality Blender tutorials all over on YouTube that can help you on your journey. You definitely can jump right in and try following along with a character tutorial as a beginner, but it'll just be a bit of a steeper learning curve. So now I'll hopefully leave you with some non-abrasive, royalty-free music that you can sit back and enjoy while finishing the time-lapse. I'll catch you in the outro. Temporary, I love you, goodbye. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I really had fun making Mario. Part 2 will be coming soon, and we'll cover his texture and rigging. If you liked this video and want to see more, subscribe and like the video. If you want to help us grow, consider sharing the video. It'd be doing us a huge favor. Thank you all again. Stay safe. I love you all. Goodbye.